Body language. Those silent, subtle, and often subconscious little gestures that tell us so much about what a person's really thinking. If only we could recognize and interpret them. Admittedly, some of these gestures or signals are not so subtle and are easily interpreted. We've all seen these before. We knew exactly what they meant, even though no words were spoken. But what about signals that aren't so obvious? For example, you're trying to convince your supervisor to give you a raise, and you're pleading your case with great vigor and detail. Then suddenly you see him do this. Should you continue talking or let him get a word in? Should you press on with your argument or change your tactics? Are you winning your case or losing it? Well, now what if he does this? Or this? All of these signals have definite, specific meanings that reveal a person's innermost feelings. Now, this tape will help teach you to recognize and interpret certain basic body signals that are an everyday part of our lives. So what good is this knowledge? Well, feedback from body language can give you an immediate indication of what a person is thinking, and recognizing and interpreting body signals will give you an opportunity to change, to be more aggressive, to do something different in order to bring about the results you want. And most importantly, a knowledge of body language helps you to better understand yourself and others. Now, in many ways, our body language is clearer than our spoken language because we don't always have complete control of our body. You see, our body tends to react spontaneously, and its movements can't be disguised nearly as much as words can. And that is the key to recognizing body language. The body reacts spontaneously, suddenly, to something that was just said or done. This body reaction reveals itself often subconsciously as a body signal, indicating varying degrees of positive or negative feelings. For example, blushing is an uncontrollable body signal. Now, if you were embarrassed by something that was just said, you would blush immediately instead of blushing much later. And therefore, recognizing body signals the moment that they happen and relative to what was just said or done is the key to evaluating what they mean. Now, recognizing body signals is one thing, interpreting them is quite another. For example, is this man deep in thought, or does he have a headache? Is this woman defensive, or merely comfortable? Is this man expecting something, or does he just have cold hands? With these body signals, as with every other one you will ever see, a good rule of thumb is to assume that the signal is meaningful, unless through observation or conversation it is proven otherwise. Also keep in mind that when body language is the result of basic human biology, the signals are the same throughout the world. For example, it is human nature to shield our eyes from strong light, dust, or wind. Similarly, when this woman closes her eyes, it is an unmistakable sign that she is shutting herself off, not from sunlight, but from verbal abuse. In effect, she is saying, "Enough, I hear you." On the other hand, when body language is the result of social customs, the signals are different from one culture to the next. For example, the downward glance tends to be a sign of submissiveness in Western cultures, but in some African cultures, it is a sign of politeness. Now, before we get into the specifics, let's take a look at the parts of the body that are most responsible for body language. Oh, by the way, you'd better forget about that raise. All of those signals that we showed you earlier were negative. We'll find out why a little later on. Right now, let's head on over to the Body Language Laboratory. This is where we learn many of our secrets. To help us out today, I would like to introduce you to Clyde. Clyde is a good friend of mine and our resident expert at illustrating body language, even though he is a dummy. Nothing personal, Clyde. To begin with, let's talk about the head. The head houses most of our sense organs and is easily the most expressive part of our body and is therefore the most important part in our body language. When talking, we look at the other person's face and specifically at the eyes more than any other part of the body. But also when and how a person touches various parts of the face is equally significant and, as we will see, can reveal a lot about that person's true feelings. The neck supports the head. It is a pitifully weak and vulnerable part of the body, but critical nonetheless, for it houses important arteries, vocal cords, and so forth. Now, biologically speaking, protecting the neck is critical. Imagine, if you will, how predatory animals go for the kill by lunging for the neck. Well, we humans have retained a bit of this defensiveness about our necks, and therefore body language associated with the neck is usually defensive. When a person suddenly hides his neck with a shrug, or lowers the head, or places their hands under the collar, well, these are sudden defensive positions that reveal moments of uncertainty. Now, the arms, on the other hand, are strong and mobile. Now, they're used to defend the body. This is certainly a protective, defensive posture. However, when the arms are suddenly raised behind the head, the defenses are opened up. This is a power signal revealing confidence. This guy is definitely in control of the situation. Now we come to the hands and fingers. Our body's most sensitive tools. There are thousands of nerve endings here, making it possible to experience much of the world merely by touching it. We express ourselves with our hands. We open our hands, we clench our fists, we point to things, we shake hands. And all of these gestures play an integral role in body language. For example, a clenched fist is a weapon that humans have used since the beginning of time. With our fists, we grasp things very tightly. We shake it in order to threaten someone. And yes, we also hit with it. Don't worry, Clyde. A clenched fist usually reveals pent-up emotions, either aggressiveness or defensiveness, and is a sure sign that the person is in an uncomfortable state of mind. The chest, or trunk, is also important. It is most responsible for our posture, and our posture often reflects our true feelings. For example, it is difficult for an excited person to slump, just as it is difficult for a depressed person to stand up straight and keep his body alert. And now we come to the pelvis, the great taboo zone of our body. Yes, it also plays an important part in body language. Because many emotions and feelings and urges originate here, it has the capacity to communicate our most secret messages. Holding a briefcase in front of your pelvis, shielding this vulnerable area, may reveal your momentary insecurity and discomfort. And finally, we come to the legs and feet. In the language of body movement, these are the chattiest, most irrepressible speakers. As you know, they are about as far away as you can get from the head. And that's important, since we tend to be preoccupied with a person's face and upper body. More than any other part of the body, the legs and feet tend to be very blatant with their expressiveness. They subconsciously do pretty much whatever they want to. For example, when sitting, the position of the legs can be very revealing. Although this person looks relaxed and confident, The crossed legs form a barrier which may indicate increased tension. And this woman's pretzel-shaped legs show that, inwardly at least, she's a nervous wreck. So it is fairly obvious that every part of our body, from head to toe, is an accomplished speaker in the silent, spontaneous rhetoric of body language. Thank you, Clive. It's been a pleasure. Did you ever wish that you could look into a crystal ball and tell if someone were lying to you? I see a man on TV selling a unique clinically tested hair growth remedy. Is he telling the truth? And now, I see a late-night TV used car salesman. Is he really honest, John? Body language is probably the closest thing we have to a crystal ball when it comes to telling if someone is being truthful with us or if they are stretching the truth. Generally, when an individual is honest and open, his or her body signals will reflect this mood by opening up and exposing parts of the body. But when a person is hiding something or is defensive, the body signals consist of covering up parts of the body. For example, the next time someone is talking with you, look at their hands. The palms of the hands are much more sensitive than the backs of the hands. During conversation, exposing the palm to the outside world shows openness and trust. The back of the hand protects the palm. When it is turned toward a person during conversation, it is a protective gesture revealing a defensive attitude. People who gesture a lot with the backs of their hands are usually protecting their true feelings or concealing something. The body language of concealed feelings is a body with arms folded, hidden hands either clenched or stuffed in pockets, or eyes that avoid looking at you square in the face, or eyes that are hidden behind a hand, or even eyes that blink a lot. People who are concealing something tend to squirm or make tiny body shifts much more frequently than those not trying to hide something. As false words emerge from their mouth, the natural tendency is to cover them up with a hand. A refinement of this signal is the hand merely touching the mouth, or even the nose. On the other hand, the body language of openness or honesty consists of movements that open up the body. In a sense, the person is saying, I've got nothing to hide. Gestures are usually made with open arms and hands. Men will frequently even unbutton their coats. Eyes will not wander. They'll remain comfortably focused. When listening, People with an open mind will often display their trust by bending their head to one side, exposing the neck. However, if something occurs to disrupt the harmony, the head will immediately pop back up to protect the neck. Whenever you suddenly see a rhythmic pattern like this drumming of the fingers, it's a pretty good sign that the person is just plain bored. There are variations on this theme, but they all mean the same thing. Each of us has our own characteristic non-rhythmic pace. The way we walk, the way we talk, that helps define who we are. This self-involved rhythmic behavior, however, is an outward sign of an internal conflict. For whatever the reason, the person is now more involved with himself than with you. You've lost their attention, and it's time to start thinking about how you're going to get it back. And how do you know when you've suddenly regained their attention? Aside from the fact that the finger drumming stops, there are several key signals. The most obvious is that an attentive, interested person will usually look you in the eye with an occasional nod of the head, which says essentially, yes, I understand. Certain eye movements also reveal attentiveness. For example, if the person you are talking with suddenly looks up and to his right, this is a positive signal. He is probably envisioning something you've just said as being of future benefit to him. If he suddenly looks up and to his left, this too is a positive signal. He is probably applying something in his past as an example of what you just said. Think of these eye movements as though you were reading a book. As you glance to the right, you are looking on, looking to the future. And as you glance left, you are looking backwards or to the past. Here are some other signals of attentiveness. When a seated person suddenly leans forward, it's a strong indication that the person is interested in what you're saying. And if a person leans forward and puts their arms on the table, then you know that person is in the palm of your hand. Okay, fine. You have their attention. But now, how can you tell from a person's body language whether they agree with you or don't, whether they accept you or they don't? Acceptance signals tend to be harder to read than rejection signals. Because once a person agrees with you, for the moment anyway, they are no longer a threat. You no longer have to win them over to your way of thinking. Then you become more involved in what you're saying and less observant of the signals the other person is giving out. Learning to recognize acceptance signals is equally as important as recognizing rejection signals. One tells you to continue your approach, the other warns you to change it. For example, if a question is asked and a person responds with silence, this can be a positive signal. It indicates that the person is weighing all the options before making a commitment. Even though the eventual response may be negative, that moment of silence indicates the person could have gone either way, and perhaps a little more persuasion may be all that is needed to change their mind. Many acceptance signals are similar to attentiveness signals. A nod of the head, leaning forward, touching you or anything belonging to you, are strong acceptance signals. Touching the jaw or chin with a hand or anything held in the hand like a pencil is also a positive signal of acceptance. And when touching turns into rubbing, That is a very positive signal of acceptance. But don't confuse touching the chin with touching the nose. When a person touches their nose, it is a classic signal of disagreement or disbelief. And if they rub their nose, it's even a stronger negative signal. Now, don't get carried away with all of this. Keep in mind that a lot of people just plain have itchy noses, and recognizing and interpreting signals requires a little practice. This is a scratch. This is a negative body signal. Other signals of rejection, disbelief, or disagreement tend to cover up or protect the body from incoming information. Suddenly touching or covering the mouth, covering both the nose and mouth, or folding the arms, are signals of rejection. A raised eyebrow signals strong disbelief. Also, leaning back, squinting, and shaking the head, whether they're done in quick succession or by themselves, are all negative signals of rejection. But remember, although sometimes a simple gesture may be enough to tell you that a person is irritated, and more often it's the accumulation of subtle signals, spotted at the moment they occur, that paint that unmistakable picture of rejection. Excuse me. Excuse me, please. Thank you. Excuse me, please. Excuse me. How many times have you seen it? A person sits down in a theater and immediately throws his coat on the empty chair next to him. Human beings, like most animals, have this habit of continually marking their territory. Each of us has our own invisible bubble of space that moves with us wherever we go, whether standing in line for the Saturday afternoon matinee or milling about waiting for the bus to arrive. And we often subconsciously maneuver ourselves to maintain about 1 to 2 feet of space between ourselves and others. Additionally, about 4 to 6 feet is the optimum distance between two people for effective communication. If it's more than that, simple distractions can easily disrupt the flow of information. If it's less than that, it becomes unnatural and uncomfortable and threatening. Now, behavior associated with this territorial space is a result of our survival instinct. To invade our space is threatening. To claim more space is aggressive. Body language associated with increasing a person's territory or invading the territory of others reveals confidence, dominance, superiority, even arrogance. These are the signals of power. A leg simply draped over the arm of a chair, or a foot placed on a desk, is an expansion of territory as blatant as Napoleon's march across Europe. In the world of body language, these sudden signals illuminate moments of confidence and superiority. And sometimes we expand our territory by placing personal possessions beyond our rightful space, like that coat on the theater chair, or like the subordinate who violates her supervisor's space by placing papers on her desk. Once again, an invasion of territory that reveals confidence and aggressiveness. When one person suddenly stands up and literally speaks down to another, they are assuming a power position. Not only have they moved into the other person's space, but the heightened position also communicates dominance and superiority. However, the body language of power is not confined to signals relating to body space. A confident person tends to sit or stand very erect. Their head may be tilted back, exposing the throat. With their nose in the air and their chin out, they are literally challenging all comers. Here, confidence borders on arrogance. With very confident people, there are relatively few hand-to-face gestures. Well, that's not to say, though, that the hands are completely inactive. For example, if a person suddenly touches his fingertips together, it's a sure sign of confidence. Women often do the same thing, but usually in a less obvious position. Generally, the higher the hands are held, the more confident and in control the person feels. And if you've ever sat across a desk and looked at someone through the picket fence of their fingers, you'd better know what you're talking about, because you're up against an extremely confident person, one who is in absolute command of the situation. As we've seen before, if a person suddenly leans back and places their hands behind their head, this too is a definite power signal. And while their body is literally open and defenseless, their body language is saying, I need no defense. I know I'm right, and my position is unassailable. Now keep in mind that this signal could also mean that the person is seriously thinking about what you are saying. Another power signal. A person puts their hands on their hips. Just like every football player you've ever seen, waiting on the sidelines, anxious to get in the game. One hand or both hands on the hips, while standing or sitting, can be taken as a challenge. It's an indication that the person is committed to a goal or to an idea that they strongly believe in. You can take it as a positive or negative signal, depending on whether you agree with them or not. All of these power signals, signals of confidence, dominance, superiority, and arrogance, although usually done subconsciously, can often trigger feelings of confrontation, protest, and aggression. Some other power signals. The boss points out an error with the back of the hand predominantly displayed. There is no room for negotiation here. Or the seemingly friendly pat on the shoulder. When the gesture is from above, it could mean stay down right where you are. When a person suddenly cracks his knuckles, this too is an aggressive, even arrogant signal. As we have seen, many of these power signals commonly occur in the workplace and often take place between supervisor and subordinate. And it used to be so simple to tell one from the other. The supervisors were older men. The subordinates were young men and occasionally women. But these days, you can't tell the players without a program, especially since more and more professional women enter the workforce and rise to positions of authority. Admittedly, it's often difficult for women to deal with the time-worn prejudices that men have had toward them, that a woman's place is in the home, or women have no head for business. In the workplace, women can help counter many of these prejudices by consciously using powerful body language and by avoiding sending unintentional signals. Well, the next section of this tape is directed to the women in the audience. There are 3 general rules for more effective professional communication. Rule number 1, stand and shake. If in a professional setting, the men stand when a visitor arrives, you women should too. And if there's a hand to be shook, shake it. Ah, yes, shaking hands. That age-old gesture that says we come bearing no arms. We come in peace. This simple gesture has been the domain of men for generations. It gives that first all-important impression of what the person connected to that hand is like. And in this day and age, women should not pass up this handshaking opportunity to make a statement, to assert their equality, and to show that they are a force to be reckoned with. Oh, incidentally, fellas, if the situation dictates a formal greeting, don't wait for a woman to offer her hand first. Rule number 2, be aware of the signals you are sending out and try to eliminate as much as possible those signals that emphasize your femininity. For example, an erect stance reveals confidence, and comfortable shoes are important to achieve this positive, confident posture. However, standing for long periods in uncomfortable shoes often causes you to shift your weight back and forth. And be aware that this shifting may be interpreted as indecisiveness. Also, be aware that to stand comfortably in high heels, it's often necessary to lean back slightly, which is fine. Unfortunately, when you lean back, something's got to go forward, or else you're going to fall flat on your ass. So what is it that goes forward? Your pelvis. A protruding pelvis can mistakenly signal that you are open and receptive to a sexual advance. Remember that comfortable shoes can save your back and your credibility. Other gestures that should be avoided are those associated with preening. You know, people who touch themselves a lot usually like to be touched by others. It's a fact. Women, when you touch yourself by frequently adjusting your hair, clothing, or jewelry, whether you realize it or not, you are sending out signals that you also like to be touched by others. This may accidentally invite trouble. Now, on the job, when men touch women, though it may be completely innocent, it could also be a subconscious invasion of territory that reveals a superior or patronizing attitude. And so we come to rule number 3. Be aware of the signals you receive, and particularly those signals from men that reveal dominance and superiority. Many of these signals we've seen earlier on this tape, the signals of non-acceptance and the signals of power. However, when a woman receives these signals from a man, the signals often carry the added meaning that the man is not taking the woman seriously. Studies show that women are interrupted by men much more frequently than men are by women. If it happens once, it's rude. If more than once, it may indicate that the man believes his opinions are more important than those of the woman he continually interrupts. This is just the sort of situation where conscious use of body language can really be effective. And men, you can use this technique too. Use the universal symbol for stop. Look the offender dead in the eye, say, "Excuse me," thereby demonstrating your own good manners and superior breeding. And then go on and make your point. This technique may be used repeatedly, even on the same boorish offender, and may safely be used on peers and competitors. A tip: don't try this technique on your boss.
Can we get to the part of the tape we've all been waiting for? I mean, you know what I mean. Hey, can we talk? Okay. You're at the mall, right? And absorbing the scenery. This beautiful chick walks by. Hey, come on. Is she available or what? What a drag. You've got to go over there and talk to her and blah, 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 blah. Hey, is there any way that we can tell if she's really with you? You bet there is. Both men and women who are looking for social contact have their own set of body signals that to the trained eye are unmistakable. Well, even the way you first look at someone can be very revealing. For example, whenever two people meet, no matter where it is, in an office, in the street, in an elevator, the first thing that happens is they look at each other. Now, between strangers who have no intention of starting a relationship, this ritual glance lasts only a moment, long enough to acknowledge the person's existence, but not so long as to make the other person uncomfortable. This ritual glance is extremely important, for it carries with it the statement that the two see each other and that each respects the other's privacy. If, on the other hand, this glance lasts a bit longer, it opens up a whole realm of possibilities and could signal the start of a relationship. Okay, so we've made eye contact. What's next? How about a person's posture? The posture of people who are poised and ready for social contact will usually be erect. Now, slumping and sagging will miraculously disappear. Preening gestures will increase. Both men and women will straighten their hair and clothes, whether they need fixing or not. And you can bet that they'll glance into every available mirror that they pass just to make sure that everything is perfect. And in social situations, even the way a person sits can be a veritable encyclopedia of information. A woman will often slowly cross and uncross her legs in front of the man she's interested in. Her foot may be moving, but not in the rhythmic motion of someone who's bored. Now, this time, there will be a definite arch to the movement. A man may extend his leg, subconsciously marking his territory and blocking out others. If progress is being made, the two will often position themselves so that they face each other, visually telling the rest of the world that this is a closed conversation and that visitors are not welcome. When sitting side by side, this same intimacy may be revealed by their upper bodies facing each other. Their legs may be crossed toward each other, forming a common barrier against everyone else. If things are going well, there will be a lot of smiles, of course, but look for the broad, genuine smiles with teeth exposed. If during the conversation, either the man or the woman suddenly tilts their head, it shows that they are interested in what was just said. Now, this gesture is also used to impress a person, to sort of show off their good side. If a person suddenly looks down and to the left, it often means that, for the moment, the person is seriously thinking about what was just said or proposed. Also, a lot of the signals revealing interest and acceptance that we saw before may come into play in a social situation, especially gestures with open palms. Looking you in the eye with an occasional nod. Touching the jaw or chin. Or leaning forward are all positive signals of acceptance. If, on the other hand, the two aren't hitting it off, you'll notice quite a different picture. A person's posture will more likely be closed with knees and feet together. Arms may be crossed. Hands may be clenched. And fingers may be drumming. The smile may be strained, a sort of half smile with no teeth showing, and it will quickly fade. A bite of the lip signals hesitation toward what is being suggested. The seating arrangement may be farther apart. Chairs may be opened up. A definite invitation for others to join in. Or if seated side by side, upper bodies will probably not face each other, but will be more erect and vertical, and legs may be crossed in opposite directions. And if you notice that your companion becomes more fascinated with her watch than she is with her conversation with you, you'd better realize that the relationship has fizzled, because watching is the classic signal of boredom and impatience. Body language. Those silent, subtle, subconscious little gestures that tell us so much about what a person is really thinking. Whether the setting is business or social, between friends or strangers, over 60% of the messages sent and received during person-to-person encounters are nonverbal. Our bodies often react spontaneously to the words and gestures of others. Therefore, recognizing body signals the instant that they happen is the key to interpreting what they mean. Body language is full of intrigue and mystery, and it has a direct application to every phase of our lives. A knowledge of body language not only can help bring about the results you want, it can better help you to understand yourself and others.